Howdy, I am fiction author Scott Sigler, and welcome to episode 4 of So You Wanna Be a Writer. Sometimes people ask me questions about my writing, and I do my best to answer those questions. But sometimes I see people doing things that are counterproductive to their creative efforts. That's what I'm going to talk about in this episode, the cardinal sin of trying to make things perfect. Now, aside from how do I get published and how do I market my stuff, one of the more common questions I get is, how do I make enough to become a full-time author? For starters, you might never become a full-time author. There's no magic formula for the sales of books, be they print, ebook, or audiobook. But one element common to people who make that leap to full-time writing is that they write great stories and they write a lot of them. Now, some people write a book, get it published, it sells a buttload of copies, and they live happily ever after. Is that you? Well, I hate to be the guy that tinkles in your Cheerios, but the chances are no, that's not you. When you look at the number of people trying to write books, the odds of you hitting that home run are somewhat less than your odds of dying from a shark attack or a plane crash. In this episode, we're not going to get into how to get your books into the Kindle store, into Audible, etc. There are hundreds of great resources for that online. Vendors have FAQs that show you exactly what to do, and there are lots of people with excellent advice on the subject. Instead, we'll go a step higher and talk about a long-term workflow strategy so you can make more stuff to put into all of those stores. Suffice to say that anyone can now put books into the Kindle store and other ebook marketplaces. You don't need a publisher if you don't want one. That means there is nothing stopping you from getting your story in front of a paying audience that numbers in the millions. Well, that's not true. One thing can stop you, and that's not putting anything in those stores in the first place. Let's look at how you get paid for books. As we mentioned, assume that you don't hit that home run and rake in millions with your first novel. Instead, you'll do what thousands of other hardworking authors do. You will put your book into the marketplace, and you will make a certain amount from it. That amount is modified, of course, by your marketing efforts, your genre, the quality of your work, etc. But for the sake of argument, let's say those things mean your book can generate $1,000 a year in revenue. The simple math is your second book is likely to make around the same amount. If you put 5 books in the store, that $1,000 a year becomes closer to $5,000 a year. So the more you put in the store, obviously, the more that you make. But I believe, and so do other authors who have had way more success in those marketplaces than I have, that there is a customer perception that more equals more. The more books an author has in the marketplace, the better that author and those books must be. Have you ever been on Amazon and seen a book? Maybe look at that author's page and see the author has written just that one novel. Sometimes that brings with it a subtle, subconscious perception that maybe the author isn't good enough to have more than one. Or maybe the author is new and won't be seasoned. Or that it is the first book in a series, and if you like it, you don't want to wait a year for the next one. But when customers look at an author's page and see 5 books, 6 books, 7 books, there is a different perception. People tend to think, wow, she wrote 7 books, she must be good. And if you have a full series done and people see that, they know that if they like the first book, they can dive right into the second. So more books means a basic multiplier, but you're also increasing the value of your brand. The bottom line, again, is write great stuff and write a lot of it. But what could stop you from doing that? It sounds so simple. If you're committed to making great stuff, it probably means you look at your own work with a critical eye. You ever find yourself thinking, I can make that better, or I can tweak that? Those attributes are vital for making great work, but at some point you have to finish your novel and take it to market, or you will never get paid for that work. When is your book done? Well, that's hard to define. You're not making widgets that meet a specific measurement, you're making art, and art is subjective. The point, though, is that you need to understand that it will never be perfect. I've written 10 hardcovers so far, and as far as I'm concerned, they all needed another draft. And then another. Maybe another after that. Are the books good the way they went into bookstores? Absolutely. Could they have been better? Things can always be better, and that's the trap that you have to avoid. So, are you an artist? Well, that depends on your definition of the word. But if you offer up your work in exchange for money, If you sell what you make, then you are a business. And there's no gray area there. And that business only has one factory, you. If that factory takes 5 years to make one product, guess what? The factory worker isn't getting paid during those 5 years. How do I know when it's finished? The best way I know to determine when something is done is to set deadlines for completion before you even begin. This gives you a specific structure and a timeline. If you're a new writer and you don't know your pace yet, I think 1 year is a reasonable goal to make a book. You can look at your calendar and make an educated guess as to how long it will take to write the first draft, the second draft, and the third. If you need a guideline, try 3 months for the first draft when you're trying to just get your work down. 3 for the second, where you're cutting and editing and pruning and crafting, and 2 for the third, when you're polishing and streamlining. Now, if you want to pursue traditional publishing, meaning agents and established print publishers, you're done. Start sending that book out and working on your next property. Just like you can't get paid if you don't finish the book and put it up for sale, you can't get published if you're not getting the work in front of the publishing industry. Finish it and get it out there. However, if you're going to self-publish, there are a few more steps. 1 month for a professional editor to review. Get it in your head right now that you need to hire a professional editor if you're going to sell your work. It's not something your spouse should do or a fellow writer should do. Budget for it and do it right. Take a month to process that professional edit, to go through and see what changes need to be made. This is your final draft. And finally, a month for a copy editor to do a really thorough job to make sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. You are taking people's money for this book. Remember that, and you might as well get it right the first time. During that same month the copy editor is working, you are hiring a cover artist to make a professional cover. Unless your day job is graphic design, you shouldn't do your own cover. What you think is awesome probably looks amateurish and can impact your sales. Yes, I know you've got Photoshop. I've got this awesome ratchet set I bought at Sears. That doesn't mean I'm going to do my own collision repair. When the copy edit comes back, I recommend you hire an ebook designer to do the layout. Many people will tell you that you can do the layout yourself, and you can, but if you have budget here, hire someone. They'll prep it for all the formats and it will be done right. The time you would spend first formatting, then fixing your formatting errors when paying readers let you know they found them, you instead spend writing more stuff. Ebook layout takes about another month, and when that's done, you add your cover, and it's time to learn how to get the book into stores. Now, can that same overall process be done in 6 months instead of 12? By some people, sure. Are you very busy and you think it'll actually take 18 months, even 2 years? That's fine. What matters is making an educated guess about how long it will take, setting deadlines, and then meeting those deadlines. Make it great, but don't obsess about the P word. Setting deadlines saves you from the hunt for perfection, and it keeps your factory producing new product. The more quality product you produce, the more there is for the marketplace to buy. The more there is to buy, the more money you will earn. If you want to be Hemingway and take a decade to make a perfect product, awesome, do that. But if you want to sell stories to people and make money doing it, then a decade spent writing a book is a decade where that book isn't making any money. So make great stuff and make a lot of it. Until next episode, I am Scott Sigler. Learn more about my goodies at your favorite bookstore, at Amazon, at iTunes, or at scottsigler.com. Good writing.